Quick time check for you. We're looking at 7:09 actually. More like 7:10 now as we settle into hour number 2 of the Breakfast Roundtable here on Sky 99.5 FM. And we're putting the Vicki Boodram escape conspiracy in the spotlight right now. We're going to be linking up with the president of the Prison Officers Association in just a bit. But right now on the line, we've got a member of the Police Service Commission, Mr. Martin George. Good morning to you, Martin George.
Hi, good morning to you,
morning, Martin.
Good morning, Edison, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Martin George, this sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie. Remember that movie, Catch Me If You Can, with Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio? I couldn't help thinking of that when I heard the story break.
Well, just the interesting thing about it is, and, I would like, when you have the president of the Prisons Officers Association on your interview, maybe you all can address what I think is really the elephant in the room, in the sense that we have had, and I guess quite rightly so, the Prison Officers Association. They are very vocal and very public in their, claims and their comments when it is that you have any incident involving a prisons officer, and they would say, that they need more protection, they are not, well secured and stuff like that. But, part of, I think, our analysis ought to examine the question of how many prisons officers may actually be involved in illegal activities themselves. So, sometimes when you see something happen to a prisons officer and the association jumps up and, is quick to say, well, it's work-related, it's because of his job, because he was a prisons officer. I have often raised the issue, where is the evidence to show that it was necessarily work-related? Who is to say that the officer may not have been engaging in some, extracurricular activities? And I'm trying to put it in the nicest possible way.
All right. I think
it brings us right back.
Mm-hmm.
It brings us right back to this scenario with Vicki Boodram, because it is clear that this could not have been orchestrated without the assistance of prisons officers. She didn't just walk out of the prison unaided, if you understand me. So there must have been some assistance, either complicit and active or tacit, by prisons officers to allow this to happen.
I think we have the president of the Prisons Officers Association on the line. Hello, good morning to you, Mr. Richards.
Morning,
yes,
Mr.
good
Richards.
morning. Yes. Mr. George, you're hearing
Hi,
Mr.
good
Richards?
morning to you, Mr. Richards.
Lovely, good. All right, Mr. Richards, you would have heard the opening salvo from Martin George. How would you want to respond to that?
Well, you see, the problem, part of what Mr. Martin George is being put into, but the reality is the job of a prison officer is inherently dangerous. Even more so in a modern time like this, where the criminals are challenging the state or challenging law enforcement officials. Prison officers are the closest persons or the closest group of workers or employees to the criminals. We actually live with them and operate with it, among them. And a lot of the decisions we make to discipline to ensure that safety and security is maintained in the prison environment comes with a lot of resistance, even more so in this time where there's a high level of high lack of respect for law enforcement and law enforcement officials in general. So while Mr. Martin George will articulate that there could be a possibility or there is not sufficient evidence to prove that the prison officer didn't do something wrong in the job that would have caused his demise, I dare say that based on the work environment alone, because if you look at the last few killings of prison officers, it would have been officers who would not have been working in areas that we consider very contentious. Two of the killings were officers who were actually on vacation for a very long period of time. Mr. Glenford Gardner, you have Mr. The Superintendent at Nova, Mr. Miller. So it is not sufficient to just look at it at the surface and say, well, look, they may have been involved in something. I think Trinidad has long gone past that type of situation. Now, the other issue is the issue of Mr. Vicki Boodram. Now, prison officers operate with instruction, right? When we move inmates from point A to point B, when we remove custody, or we transfer custody of the inmate from our jurisdiction to the police, because remember, remandees are kept for the court. We just keep them until such time that the court will require them. So when a court document comes to the prison, there's hardly any latitude. There's no latitude in the matter really for prison officers, save and except the court document is seemed to be lacking or insufficient or not seem to be authentic. But once all the requirements on that document is there, the only thing that the prison officer can do is to release into custody the inmate to the police. And I will say this. The police officers in question here are police officers who are accustomed coming to the prison on a daily basis for inmates. They came in uniforms and marked vehicles. So one will not expect, and that is why, Jessica, you in your opening remarks, you talk about the Marine some Hollywood movie, right? The officer.
Catch Me If You Can. She was referring to Catch Me If You Can.
Right, Catch Me If You Can. I can't recall the movie so good, but when you look at the prison officer operating, this is not something that is accustomed happening. So one, the prison officer who is operating at the reception will not expect that police officers who come in the jail or in the prison on a daily basis, who is well known, right, coming in their marked vehicles to be engaged in this type of activity. That is one. So we're talking about suspicion here now. When you look at the court document, the document fulfills all of the requirements of the instruction of the court. And that is what we will verify. And more than one person will verify the authenticity or the document itself. Right? And once those requirements are met, it is not a matter for the commissioner to ask, but why 4 o'clock in the evening? Why 3 o'clock in the evening? It is not like as if this didn't happen before. These things happen before, not very regular, but it is not unheard of. So it is pretty common.
Right, and I accept that, Mr. Richards, and I certainly agree with you there in terms of, you know, if it is that it's an order or an instruction from the court that there must be compliance. And the problem definitely spreads further than the prison service, because we also need to look, as you are quite rightly pointing, to the police service and whatever problems there are inherent or endemic within the police service. And that is something that, you know, Jessime and Edison can attest to. I have been speaking out about regularly. You know, I've been calling for the establishment of an internal affairs unit within the police service, whereby you have undercover officers within the police service basically spying on officers, because unless you have that and you have persons who are within the belly of the beast, so to speak, you know, observing and reporting and detecting crime within the organization, you will forever continue to have situations like this occurring. If you remember, there was also the situation, Mr. Richards, I'm sure you remember, with Mr. Ramdani, right? Down south, a well-known person who he had charges before the court. He was alleged to be involved in some illegal activities, and a similar scenario either on the way to court or coming from the court. You know.
Yes, I recall that. And the reality is, Mr. George, we have to be very proactive as organizations. We know that the criminals are getting more brazen. We know the criminals have money now. So, I mean, the whole thing about street punks, remember a long time we used to say, they are just street punks because they are without resources. They just do things with intent, but they are without resources. Now the modern day criminal, what we used to call street punks in the older days, they are now loaded with resources. And they can do things that, you know, that they wouldn't have normally done in the past. So we have to be forever vigilant. We have to have a system that will mitigate against these type of circumstances, proactive solutions. Now we are learning as we go along. Well, I hope we are learning as we go along, because this situation with Vicki Boodram, and according to Jesse May and Edison Carr, it is unheard of in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, who would have expected that something like that would have happened? Certainly, we would now have to relook and re-strategize how we treat with the discharging of inmates within the prison domain. Because
not just that, Mr. Richards, I think one of the issues that needs to be looked at also is the question of the communication, because it appears that certain prisoners are able to have basically almost free and easy access to means of communication with the outside world, which may not be afforded to the ordinary inmate. And I think that clearly has to be a factor that we look at here, because, you know, for this to be, you know, orchestrated and masterminded, you must have access to, you know, regular and, you know, easy communication, you know, with the outside world to be able to have this plan put in place. So we need to look at that also in terms of how it is that prisoners get access to means of communication with the outside world in an easy manner.
Well, undoubtedly, that is a reasonable hypothesis. I mean, there must be some level of communication that would have been done to make sure that this plan, you know, was well put in place, well orchestrated, and, you know, and executed. So I agree. So there's need for the treatment of that illegal communication between prisoners and the outside world. That is a fact. That has always been a fact that we are grappling with over the years. But as it regards to that escape, prison, as far as the prison service is concerned, because we had the opportunity to look at the court notes. And if I was working in the reception, right? If I was working in the reception, I was one of the persons charged with responsibility to discharge an inmate, I would have very well adhered to that court note as well, because it's an instruction from the court, and one do not want to be accused of not carrying out the dictates of the court, especially if the court note meet the requirements, because prison officers and the regulation tell you that once you get a document from the court, there are things that you must look for, and once the document meets the requirements, the prisoner does not belong to the prison. The prisoner is kept there until such time instructions come from the court to have that prisoner brought before the court.
So, Mr. Richards, that the top of the chain of command would be from the court. The court would send the instruction to the police. Because the report is just saying the officer received the officer received instruction from a senior official. They didn't identify who this official was, whether it was a police officer or whether it was the court. So the instruction would come from the court.
Yes, the court, the police are the persons who will carry out the dictates of the court. They are the agents of the court.
We have a report in today's Guardian where the police officer, one of the police officers who was questioned, says he didn't know that he was helping her escape. He was just following instructions.
And that is why we have, and I don't want to get into the tenets of the investigation, because there are investigations on the way, and we ought to be very careful how we speak about this matter. But
yes,
the origin of that document must trace right back to the court.
All right.
And there must be some findings as to how such document came into being in the first place. Because the document, that plan that was hatched, because we know now that Vicki Boodram is on the run. We know that. So we know that something went wrong in terms of what was the instruction that came.
Or maybe Mr. Richards, maybe she may not be on the run, she might be on a cruise.
Well, we don't know.
Naughty George, you naughty.
Well, we don't know. Well,
she could be on the high seas.
She's not in legal custody. She's not in legal custody. And how did that have happened? We have to examine the instructions that came to the prison. And again, I don't want to get into the realms of what the investigation will be, because I have to be very careful how I speak. But so far as we know, the document that came to the prison, the prison
legitimate
officer that scanned that document had no other choice but to follow what we believe at that time was the dictates of the court.
Well,
Right?
Mr. Richards, I would hope that by now that the investigating officers have that document in their possession and are certainly trying to trace the origin or the authors or the creators of that document, because that seems to be the genesis of the matter. But
Yes,
I think
yes.
it does not exculpate the police officers, without more. I think they certainly do have to answer some questions in terms of their role, whether wittingly or unwittingly. But the point is, they may need to answer some questions there. And as you said quite rightly, maybe the prison authorities need to also now have maybe a 2-step or 3-step verification process, even though a document comes from the court, maybe just to be able to make a call to the clerk of the peace at the relevant magistrate's court to say, well, look, hey, this document came in, that kind of thing, could you verify? To protect yourself also as prison officers, because you are supposed to carry out the dictates of the court, but the thing is, you don't really have any other way of knowing whether the document is genuine or not, and I certainly understand your position there.
Yes, and or we could look at making a greater electronic connection between the court and the prison service.
Because the police officers themselves...
If documents would have come into the prison, then you could scan those documents to find out if those documents are authentic or not.
So Vicki Boodram...
Yes, and get some verification.
Vicki Boodram disappeared...
Some sort of verification process. But this type of crime, and it just goes to show, Mr. Martin George, we are evolving as a society in terms of the type of crime that are being committed.
Indeed. The sophistication
about it,
when there's an evolution, is definitely increasing.
When there's an evolution of crime, there must be an evolution of crime detection.
Gentlemen,
you must be able to match. You must be able to match what is happening in the external environment.
Gentlemen, I need you.
To continue as you normally would when crime is evolving.
Gentlemen, I need you to just hold a little bit. I need to take a break right now, but we will be back with more of the discussion. Don't go far, folks.
Don't touch a button. We'll be right back with more on Sky 99.5 FM.
Following the escape of Vicki Boodram, prison officers are finding themselves on the receiving end of harsh criticism from members of the public. After all, it sounds as if Ms. Boodram and the police officers in question simply walked out of the prison with the blessing of the officers on duty. But the prison commissioner says his officers were simply following procedure and are not to be blamed. Commissioner Gerard Wilson admits that prison officers did release Ms. Boodram to the police around 5:15 p.m. on November 27th. The commissioner says WPC Navarro and PC Sylvester presented a court note from the Tunapuna Magistrates Court ordering her appearance. Commissioner Wilson admits that while this practice does not happen often, it is not illegal, as the prisons merely house remanded prisoners for the courts. He says all protocols and procedures were followed and Ms. Boodram was released into the police's care. The Prison Officers Association are also saying the same. It says their responsibility is to hold the person on behalf of the court, and it is the police who are responsible for transporting prisoners to the assigned court. However, it says this incident provides an opportunity to review how the courts, prison and police manage these offenders, and with the advances in technology, the process should not rely on a paper-based document system for communication.
All right, gentlemen, so that was just a little refresher there. And going back to the whole issue of verification, whoever is involved in this conspiracy knows very well how the system works, and they worked the system in order to achieve success, the successful escape of Ms. Boodram. I'm not sure which one of you would want to go first.
I think it also means, Jessime, that they also know how the system does not work. In other words, they clearly know the shortcomings and the pitfalls in the system, and they were able to exploit those weaknesses and go through those loopholes in order to achieve success in this scenario. But I mean, to continue from what we were saying before, it is clear that we need to ascertain the genesis or the authors or creators of this document, which set this chain of events into motion. Of course, there's the question of whether there really is a court sitting at that time. In other words, I mean, I think these alarm bells that could have been triggered, maybe should have been triggered, but still, in the face of it, on the face of the document, from what Mr. Richards is saying, one can understand an officer looking at it and thinking, well, it is from the court, so I have to comply. He may not consider it to be his place to question the authenticity of the document, but maybe in hindsight, of course, in hindsight, we always have 20/20 vision. Maybe in hindsight, he
Ceron Richards,
raised something.
Ceron Richards, just let him complete the thought, please. Yes, Martin George, you were saying?
Yeah, in hindsight, maybe he ought to have just, alerted his superiors to say, hey, this is a bit unusual. We don't often have persons being sent to court at this time, that kind of thing. You'll double check this or, something like that. But of course, again, that would depend on the, initiative and intuition of the individual officer. Because ab initio, it appears that he was presented with what appeared on the face of it to be an authentic document. So, we have to be careful in terms of, ascribing blame there. But the thing is, again, it doesn't mean that we can't look at our systems and procedures to ensure that we, close the gaps, tighten the loopholes to ensure that something like this doesn't happen again. Because, regardless of how the Commissioner of Prisons seeks to exculpate the prison system from the whole imbroglio, at the end of the day, everybody ends up with egg on their faces. And that's the reality. I mean, the public is having a field day on social media with this, and I think the authorities need to recognize that, look, regardless of which arm of the state is actually at fault, the point is we need to all take a look at ourselves and see how we can do better.
Ceron Richards, I know that, some of those memes are brilliant, actually, particularly the one using Shawshank Redemption.
I think Canadians are the most creative when it comes to stuff like
brilliant.
that, man.
But Ceron Richards, I know you and your people have been expressing concern about gaps in the security protocols in the prison system. This is just another instance where your cries, they can't afford to ignore your cries on this matter anymore. Yeah?
Well, Jessime, I just want to say it is not sheer brilliance that are causing these things to happen. It's organizations that are sleeping and not updating themselves. We have always been putting in the public domain the need for the prison service to be updating itself in terms of how we treat with security arrangement, the use of technological advance and technology in the assistance or the help to treat with security and so on. It is not that the criminals are any more brilliant than we are. It's that we as organizations within the state are staying in a state of stupor. We are not moving, we are not accelerating, we are not advancing ourselves, and we are taking deliberate approaches to not do that. The prison service still operated from old acts, the 1858 Act. Come on, we are in 2017 in a highly technological world, and we still have old laws that govern our service like the prison service. All these things about scanning warrants to ensure that the warrants are fit before you release the inmate and so on. They are old laws. They are very old. We are not updating ourselves. So I don't want to say that one group is far more brilliant than the other. It's just that we are experiencing a very lackluster approach to updating systems.
But I would imagine, gentlemen, that the receiving officers at the Tunapuna police station would have made a note in the station diary that so and so, so Miss so and so was brought in here at so and so time, and she was put, and then she disappeared into thin air.
Right, that's the thing for the investigation to reveal. But the reality is, we are not updating our system. And we are on the receiving end of not doing so. Things will continue.
And the thing is, Mr. Richard, it applies not just to the prison service, it's also to the police service, in the sense that I think that there are many ways in which the police service has failed to adequately meet and treat with the changing criminal environment in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, the point is, the same way the criminals have access to technology, the arms of the state have to ensure that we use the same technology to keep one step ahead. It can't be that the criminals appear to be more tech savvy than the police officers or the prisons officers, or that they are, so way ahead. Then it comes back to the question of our recruitment process, our requirements for recruitment. Maybe in some ways we need to ensure that, look, we headhunt persons from the universities, persons from the tech labs at the universities or these computer schools to be able to say, well, look, we have our own specialists inside who can now meet and treat with whatever challenges are brought by the criminal element. So, in other words, I think there's need for much more innovation and intuition, both on the part of the police service and the prison service, in terms of ensuring that we bring ourselves towards 21st century, police officing and police management.
Well, Mr. Martin George, well put. We are updating ourselves. We are not employing systems to attract the best persons, to attract the best, or to incorporate and implement the best type of system. So we are lagging behind in terms of our response to criminality. Who would have expected? Because you see, it's almost like it's been a state of stupor for years. We are not moving. We are not moving forward. The Prison Officers Association has always been pointing out these things, that unless we move forward as an organization to match and even surpass the expectations of criminality and so on, we will continue to experience these types of incidents. Now, Trinidad and Tobago has changed. We are the biggest copycat organized country in this hemisphere, I believe, or maybe in the world. So criminals are not, they are trying things, but we are sitting at organizations and expecting that we're going to respond the same way we have been responding for over 100 years. That cannot be. Mm-hmm. It cannot be. And these situations are supposed to initiate some sort of wake-up call. Some sort of wake-up call where we channel our resources, different channel our resources on proactivity and not reactivity. We are only reacting.
But knowing the
activity as the order of the day in terms of how we operate, we always operate as based on what is happening externally, and we try to patch it. We are not updating our organization, and that is a fact. And we will continue to have these discussions. We will continue to have the barrage of criticisms from the public who expect more from us, because that's the reality. The public expects. That's the reality. The public expects that when they commit somebody to prison, that they stay there until such time. That is the expectation of the public. So when that doesn't happen, the public will criticize and they will express their disappointment. So in order to mitigate those circumstances, you have to update as organizations.
Knowing the history of investigations and inquiries that bedevil Trinidad and Tobago, do you all expect any kind of proactivity, as Mr. Richards was saying, but they're moving with alacrity, as the case might be, before Ms. Boodram is recaptured, perhaps?
Martin George, you go first.
Well, the thing is, I would imagine that the discomfiture of the acting commissioner would be at a peak in this scenario, Edison, because not only does it squarely highlight some failings within the system in general, but it clearly means that he needs to look within himself and look within his organization and really ask himself as to whether he is satisfying the mandate which has been given to him in terms of managing an organization to ensure the safety and security of persons. Because if it is that somewhere along the line it is shown that there were police officers who were either complicit, or who may have been careless in this scenario, then that's something that ought to be looked at and dealt with. And certainly there is the expectation, very high expectation, from both the public and I would imagine the prison service to get to the bottom of this and find out, well, okay, how did this occur? Who are the ones to be held accountable? Because let's be clear on this. Miss Vicki Boodram did not free herself by herself alone. She must have had accomplices and associates out there who were part of this entire plot. So the thing is, we need to get to that. I mean, of course, recapturing her is of paramount importance, but it's not just recapturing her, it's also trying to identify and capture the persons who were part of this nefarious plot. And that's the challenge that the police service has, and I can't see the acting commissioner, at all, shifting the responsibility in this regard. And I think he has a duty to call upon, his officers to ensure that they get some clear and direct answers for the nation in as quick a time as possible.
But look at the prison break on Frederick Street a few years ago, Mr. George. It has not been completed as yet,
Well, and you're quite right. And I mean, look, even their investigation into the total day of policing, which was basically a self-examination exercise, that took, ages to be completed. So they certainly don't have a very good history when it comes to the expeditious resolution of issues. You had the Hyatt alleged bribery investigation that again dragged on for eons. Emailgate. We have a plethora of issues where our police service appears to have been tardy and very almost recalcitrant in their attempts to really investigate matters properly and expeditiously for the benefit of the nation.
Ceron Richards, on the prison service side, your thoughts?
Well, the reality is, mirroring what Mr. Martin George would have said, the reality is we have to update our systems. First and foremost, we have to find out what occurred. What occurred on that day, from the court to the police to the prison. We have to get a photograph as to what occurred, so we will know how to mitigate those circumstances, how to go forward and update ourselves as organizations to treat with those issues. But we will be hopeful that the investigation are done quickly so as we can get to the bottom of this scenario, to get to the bottom of it, to know exactly what happened, who are culpable, how do we move forward as an organization or organizations to prevent its reoccurrence. We can't just sit and just operate same old. I said it before and I'm going to say it again. The criminal elements have updated themselves. They have at their disposal technology, they have will, and they have, motive and so on. So they have their plans that they can execute. We are not responding sufficiently. As a matter of fact, in some cases, you can easily assume that we are not responding at all, because to react is not to respond. When you're talking about responding or meaningful response, you are talking about proactivity, the things that you put in place to treat with the likeliness of things happening. And in some regard, we are caught flat-footed and we are caught not responding at all. And that needs to change. Gone are the days when you could just sit down and just expect things to happen the way you want it to happen. Gone are those days.
Gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up there for now. We eagerly anticipate some more information in the right direction coming out of this particular situation. Here's hoping that, Ms. Boodram is found very soon and all the investigations are wrapped up quickly. Martin George and Ceron Richards, thank you for chatting with us on the Breakfast Roundtable.
It's been a pleasure, as always, Jessime and Edison, and thanks to Mr. Richards for his valuable insights and perspective. I appreciate having the discussion with him.
We hope the ladies found
thank you all as well, and the pleasure is mine.
Is found alive. I hope Ms. Boodram is found alive.
Yes. All right, gents. Have a good day.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with President of the Prison Officers Association, Ceron Richards, and member of the Police Service Commission, Martin George, on the Vicki Boodram escape conspiracy.
Edison Carr, Jessie May Venture, and Dr. Wayne Haywood on the Breakfast Roundtable on Sky 99.5 FM.